Let's start by saying Barakateh Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is It is Polluted, the Land is Full of Bloody Crimes. And pretty much this is a title that came to me as I was waking up this morning. I was having this crazy dream. I don't know, just have some bugged out dreams. But then, so one dream I was having, which I don't be having dreams like that. But this one dream that I had this morning, it was like we were almost like in a open field. There were trees there, and I was with some certain people. I don't remember who it was, and then there were some people on the opposite side of us. You had this one Jake, and some people with him, and he came up to me, and he, mentioned my name, and then he said, I believe he said to tell Pastor, he said hello or something like that. I can't remember exactly how he said it, and then I said, Salaki, brother, I said, forgive me, brother, what's your name again? And then he got offended, and like he got behind there was like a one of those shopping carts that you get, at the supermarket, and he just like walked away. And I just got the feeling like, that he, like that individual used to be a part of the truth and was trying to, just say something. And then since I didn't remember his name, he was just like feeling, he felt like kind of low. So I don't think it means anything, but it just, the crazy dream I was having. And then after that, as I was waking up, that title came to my mind. It is polluted. The land is full of bloody crimes, and that's talking about the land of Israel. Which you're going to get into that. There's a lot going on in Israel. There's a video that the priest Zabak put up addressing the Genesis thing, just something brief, and he said he's going to do a live on it. And pretty much, we don't really have a problem with priest Zabak, even though he's going off on the Cornelius being a Gentile thing, because he's still following the 7. 2 of the 7 finished their course. They went back into the spirit world. That was, King Masha and High Priest Yaikwab. The other 5, they're not teaching anymore. They're not, they pretty much, they went off from the script, so to speak. So we don't know what's going on with any of them, but nevertheless, they're not teaching anymore. So, the other thing that Priest Zabak goes off on is, the MOTB not being a micro C-hip. That's an important. Cornelius being an Israelite is very important to know, and MOTB, which is the micro C-hip, is very important to know for prophecy's sake. So what I gathered from the video that he had, he said he called Hakai and Hassad, or should I say it the right way, Hassad and Hakai, I believe. Hassad is the leader of that. It's just my opinion. And he said that, I understand where y'all coming from, and, like that PC shit, you know what I mean? And, we don't have a problem with Zabak, but the thing is, the brother is too PC. I don't know how true this is, but I heard it said that he said that, they have a no rebuke policy. I don't know how true that is. That's just something I heard. To me right now, it's just a rumor, so if he happens to see this video and wants to address that, so be it. I did a video called Priest Zabak. You're going to have to explain this. And he never, I don't believe he spoke on that, because according to him, you don't get involved in the back and forth stuff, which you're supposed to get involved in reproving and rebuking. That's a part of this ministry that we have. Um, so like I said, I watched it. It's about 15 minutes long. I believe it's on his channel. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm just gonna see if I can at least see the channel. Okay, yeah, it's on HOI space L capital L dot A dot. So it's HOI space LA. And it's his commentary on Genesis and what they said, and he's trying to explain away how they really didn't mean that the nations are going to be saved, like Israel's going to be saved, but they're going to be saved for slavery, captivity, and all that. And these guys, they're very deceptive, and they're saying that the nations can be saved. But it seems like Priest Sabak is trying to, or Elder Priest Sabak is trying to be PC, and clean up their mess, so to speak. And we're not, you know how we are at GMS. We just straightforward with it. We tell you what it is, and that's the reason why the scriptures say they hate him that rebuketh at the gate. So like I said, there's a lot going on in Israel. I got a video, a clip from the elder Yashawamba, and this is Captain Tazariak. Pretty much was asked what the MOTB is. He said it's Christianity. Then they were also asked. He was also asked about Apostle Tar and his title, and he said, "Well, they just gave themselves that title. They were never given that title from higher up, General Yohana, and he was given the title. That he's been having that title since, ever since blah blah blah. And when we had a picnic, and head priest Yeshaya came up, and we went to salute General Yohana when he finally came up. He said, "No, don't salute me. Salute him, because there's a higher man here than I am." And he, even though he fell out this is what Captain Zayak said later. He said, even though he fell out the truth, he still gave him that respect, just like David gave Saul the respect and called him the Lord's anointed. So I'm like, what? So does that mean that indirectly you're saying that General Yohana is King David? Maybe that's what they teach. And they say you can't be an apostle teaching that, the great doctrine, this, that, and the other, so it's just a bunch of madness going on. And you know what? I'm not sure how long the clip is. I don't really want to play the whole thing, but I'm sure, if I'm not mistaken, it should be on Captain Tazariak's, page. But there is a YouTube clip here. I'm not sure where it's from exactly, but it says, "Let's see you purchase anything with Christianity," with a question mark at the end. All right. So I'm not really gonna play that, because like I said, it's I think it's about, let me see. It's about, so that's why we don't it's like 3 minutes and 3 minutes and 30 seconds. 3 minutes and 36 seconds long. So I'm not going to play all of that. So the bottom line is, we're going to get into this lesson. It is polluted. The land is full of bloody crimes. Now, earlier, what I did was a thought came to mind to go to chat, and I went to chat to see what it would say. And I said, if the people that are in that land now are the people of God, why is there a P to the R to the I to the D to the E parade every year? That goes against the law. And they said, well, there's only 20 to 30% of them that are really religious, and you have religious and you have secular and you have this, you have that, you have the other. And I say, yeah, well, then the next point so they gave like a bunch of excuses. And then the next question I asked, well, it says when the real people go back to the land, that the people will, that all the nations will come there to learn of the laws, and that goes against, the Heavenly Father's laws, and they say, yeah, well, and then, pretty much it just kept making excuses, and I was done with chat. I just X'd out of chat, and I said, man, good night, chat, or good morning, chat. I just, X'd out of it. So, and then, it's controlled, behind the scenes. So they're only going to give you so much, because really it should have just came out straight out and said that you're correct. Isaiah 2 and Micah 4 say that when the people of the Lord go back to the land, that all nations will come to it. And they're saying that, well, that's a messianic thing, that's a future thing. Well, according to them, they're back in the land. And they're saying, well, they don't believe that we're in the messianic age, and the Christians teach the same thing. Yeah, but the point is that when the people of the Lord go back to the land, that's when all the world is going to come to Jerusalem to learn of the ways of the Lord. And a part of the Lord's ways are that lifestyle of the P to the R to the I to the D to the E, the alphabet people, is against the law. And there's a heavy penalty for that. And the penalty is D to the A to the H, D to the E to the A to the T to the H. I'm confusing myself with that that one. And that's Lamb Latin. All right, so let's get into it. So you have these people in the land of Israel today that call themselves the people of the Most High, and they're not. You do have a certain percentage of them that are, because the Israelites have been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And that land of Israel has been fought over for centuries, for decades, centuries, millennia. People have been fighting over that land to take it over and to be there. And finally, the people that are there now, which are the mini caps, the tiny tops, the small hats, they're in that land now. And that land is totally polluted. And that land was said to be polluted after because even when Israel, the real Israelites, were there, the land was polluted by the idol worship and the things that Jake was doing. So the Lord kicked Israel out of that land for doing that. So we're going to go into Ezekiel, the 7th chapter. We're going to read some of it and kind of jump around a little bit in there. And you can read the whole chapter. And this is pretty much, just before the destruction of, the Babylonian Empire coming in and taking over the land, and even at that point, when you go way back to roughly around 589 BC, I believe it was, roughly around there, when the first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, or should I say the Babylonian Empire, which was run by the Assyrians. Esau was there too, and they were helping the Babylonians take us down, and they also got up in there in that land too back then. So Ezekiel 7:1 says, moreover, the word of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai came unto me, saying, also thou son of man, thus saith the Lord power unto the land of Israel, an end is come upon the four corners of the land. Now is the end come upon thee, and I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense thee upon all thine abominations. And it says, and mine eye will not spare, and my eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense thy ways upon thee, and thine abomination shall be in the midst of thee, and you shall know that I am the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And this is the reason why we as a nation were taken out of that land. First the northern kingdom, and then the southern kingdom, because of the abominations that were being committed there. One of the main ones was idol worship, in many different forms, because you even had amongst Judah, you had kings, you had regular inhabitants, nobles, priests, all of that were worshiping Molech, and they were burning their children to Molech, sons and daughters to Molech, and you still have these heavy rituals around the world of these different nations that still do that to this very day, because it's a part of that ritual of worshiping that particular deity, no matter what they call it. That's why even today in America, who's supposed to be a so-called Judean Christian country, they have something known as the Bohemian Grove in Sonoma County, California, which the elite meet there, like the last 2 weeks of July every year, and they have something called, the owl, and they call it the owl of Molech, I believe it is. And then they'll say that it's an effigy that they're burning, you know, in as a sacrifice, which they say is not really real. But then you'll hear whenever they're doing that particular part of the ritual, there's a lot of music, loud music playing, and that loud music back in the days was the left hand priest, the those left handed or the priest of the left hand, you know, playing music to muffle out the cries of the children so that the parents wouldn't start feeling compassion for the children, to stop the ritual, and that's what that was about. So, we believe they actually do that, because you can't put it past these devils. These devils are devious and treacherous. We watched the movie Him a while back, and they show you, what Jordan Peele did. Pretty much, it's like he exaggerated what goes on, but who knows? Maybe it's even far worse than what they showed in the movie. There's a lot of sacrificial, ritualistic, demonic shit that goes on behind the scenes with these people, and the main ones in the forefront of that are who? The mini caps, the tiny tops, which are Amalek, and they are the worst of the heathen, and they are the most evil, the most wicked, and they are the most disgusting people on the planet Earth, but then people want to call us all kind of names, you know it's amazing. So we're going to jump down to the 20th verse, right? It says, as for the beauty of his ornament, he set it in majesty, but they made the images of their abominations and their detestable things therein. Therefore I have set it far from them. Right. And this is why we got kicked out of the land, because of the worshiping of these idols. And this is what caused us to become strange, because once you start worshiping idols, you become strange to the Most High, Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, nowadays, because his son Yahushai came 2,000 years ago to redeem us. So when you do that, you become strange. You become unrecognizable to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And that's the reason why, we as a people fell from that land. This is why the Apostle Paul, when he was addressing those Gentiles, which were actually Israelites that were in a Gentile state of mind, he told them that you were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. Because, you're pretty much following a ritual that was set by your fathers, going all the way back to the time of the Hellenization of Antiochus Epiphanes, and that's what took place. And they continued on in that, ritual and those customs, because it was something that was passed down to them. So they had no idea, no clue what was going on. So by the time the Lord Yahushua came on the scene, you had these Israelites that just believed that they were Greeks. They believed that they were not supposed to circumcise their sons. They believed that they should keep all of the Greek customs and the Greek religious rites and all of that. So by the time the Messiah Yahushua came on the scene, they were just straight up heathens. They were just in that heathen mind state, and that's why they had to be changed. It says, and I will give it into the hands of the strangers for a prey, and to the wicked of the earth for a spoil, and they shall what? Pollute it. And that's why that land today is polluted, because the land today, has these, heathens in it. Now let's go from there. Let's go to Luke 21. And they're going to be there until Yahushua comes back. So when chat said, I should have probably just said that when chat said that that they don't believe we're in the messianic age yet, which we're not in the messianic age. Yahushua hasn't come back yet. But by them saying that, they're pretty much admitted that those people in that land are not the people of the Most High even though he didn't, the chat didn't come out and actually say it, because this is going to be the proof. And I want to do the red letter on this one. This is Luke 21 and 24. This is what Yahushua said out of his own mouth. He said, and they, meaning the Israelites, going back to just prior to 70 AD, starting roughly around 66 AD, the middle of 66 AD, there was a rebellion that was going on. The first Jewish war started to happen, and that there was a buildup unto 70 AD, unto the destruction. And once the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem came, the Israelites were no longer in that land. They were kicked out of that land. It says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword to the Roman armies. Some of them Roman soldiers were Israelites. It says, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And that was happened. That was the last and final dispersal of the nation of Israel. And it was mainly the southern kingdom. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, the actual heathens, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So we're still not in the fulfillment of these nations being brought out of that land. And that's why the mini caps, them tiny tops, them small hats are there in the land today. The mini fitteds. That's why they're in that land to this very day, because the prophecy stated, Yahushua said out of his own mouth, that the Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the actual heathens, the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled, meaning until their rulership and their kingdoms are up. And we're coming down to this is the final heathen empire, which is the empire of the Edomites. And that's why everything in prophecy points to the Edomites being the last rulers when Yahushua, pops up on the scene, and spins the block on them, so to speak, to take out the ops, So this is the time that we're in. We're in the very end of the last and final heathen empire, which are the Edomites. So let's go from there. So like I said, when chat said that those small hats don't believe that we're in the messianic age, we're not. And we just reading right now, the Messiah himself, Yahushua, said that Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So indirectly, chat said that those are not the people of the Most High. And that's why all nations are not coming there to, learn of the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh, the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, because the people of the Most High are not there. This is why there's so much debauchery going on, because they control the government, so they control what goes on. They're saying, well, they don't really, they back up the LGBTQ, the alphabet thing and all that. Basically they back it all up. They allow the freedom of expression, the freedom of this, that, and the other, which shows you that they're not the people. Because if they were the people, they would crack down on that. They would enforce those laws. Ain't they enforcing? Ain't they getting them Palestinians out of there? Ain't they, making war all over the planet on people that disagree with them, that don't want them to, that have an opinion against them, whether they're doing it physically or whether they're doing it through censorship or whatever. So why is it so hard for them to establish order in that land and establish the laws of the Torah, in that land? Because they're not the people. So let's go from there. Let's go to the book of, back to Ezekiel 7 and 22. Matter of fact, I read 21 again. And I will give it into the hands of the strangers for a prey, and to the wicked of the earth for a spoil. That's the Edomites. And they shall pollute it. And that's what's happened. The land of Israel is polluted today. Matter of fact, let's see what this word polluted is. And they shall pollute it. The word is halal. Halal. I've seen this before. With the halal. To profane, defile, pollute, desecrate, begin. To profane oneself, defile oneself, pollute oneself ritually. And that's what they're doing. Ritually, they're polluting it. Sexually, they're polluting it. To be polluted, be defiled. So when you allow all these things to happen, you're pretty much polluting the land. It says here to violate the honor of dishonor, to violate a covenant. So they're violating the covenant by allowing all this debaucherous behavior to go on in that land, to treat as common. So you get the idea. So they polluted it. So let's go back and let's go to the verse 22. It says, my face will I turn also from them. It says, and they shall pollute my secret place, for the robbers shall enter into it and what? Defile it. Now let's see what the word defile here is. This is the same word. Yep, the same word, defile. Figured defile and pollute would be the same thing. Halal. It's the cha. Sometimes you have the word halal, sometimes you have the word halal. All right. So let's go from there to the book of Ezekiel 35. Just some precepts that came to mind. We'll just go through Ezekiel 35, and we're gonna go to the 10th verse, because this whole chapter is a really good chapter. It goes into how the Lord is going to pay back Esau for what they did, and he's going to bring blood upon them because they shed the blood of the children of Israel without any remorse. All right, but we're going to get to the point of the land. Ezekiel 35 and 10, because thou hast said, these two nations. Why did it say two nations? Because you had the southern kingdom and you had the northern kingdom, and they were able to possess both, because when the southern kingdom fell to the Assyrians that were ruling the Neo-Babylonian Empire, because the Syrian Empire couldn't take down the kingdom of Judah. It was the Babylonian Empire that took them down, but they were still being governed by the Assyrians. So when they took it down, you had a handful of the other tribes there. You had, certain Ephraimites there. You had certain, I believe, Manasseh, Asher, a couple of the but not a whole lot, But the point is that when they got that land, Jerusalem, they pretty much got everything else. So that's why it says these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, because once they got control of the capital, they pretty much got control of the whole thing. It says, and we will possess it, whereas the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai was there. And they knew that they knew what they were doing. It says, therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai, I will even do according to thine anger and according to thine envy, which thou hast used out of thy hatred against them. And that's why the Lord is going to pay you back. That's why it says, give place up to vengeance, for vengeance belongeth unto the Lord. Yeah. But who is he going to use to exact that vengeance? He's going to use us, the Israelites, and on this side, he's going to use these, YNs and these different clowns out here, that are going to, that are going to turn up on you when the Lord turns them up, which the Lord's will get to that, but in the kingdom of heaven, we're going to get revenge. We're going to get, our pound of flesh and then some. Because when you laid on your strokes, you laid on your strokes heavy, and you didn't hold back. You didn't show no mercy. So the scriptures say you shall have judgment without mercy, that have showed no mercy. It says, and according to thine envy, which thou hast used out of thy hatred against them, and I will make myself known among them when I have judged thee. Right, because the Lord is going to make himself known amongst us. And this is why right now the world is, their focus and attention is on the Hebrew Israelites, because the Lord is making his, he's making himself known among us by the words that are coming out of our mouths. Because there's no scholar on the planet, not one. There's no historian, scholar. I'm talking about top scholar. I ain't talking about these, little, self-made scholars. I'm talking about these top scholars. I mean, the top of the top, la creme de la creme of scholars that cannot break down the mysteries of the Bible. They cannot break down the book of Revelation. They cannot break down the mysteries and the prophecies of the book of Revelation. There has been nobody else on the planet that's been able to break that down except for the Hebrew Israelites. And we here at Great Millstone, as the Elder Pastor has been speaking on the chat, we are known for, there was a word that was used in the chat. I believe the word started with a D. That we were known for detailed in the prophecy. We're known for that. And there's no other people on the planet. You have, of course, other Israelite groups that stem from One West that can go into, the book of Revelation and break it down. But some of them botch up the MOTB, and some of them are botching up even some of the old breakdowns. They're straying away. But there's no scholar. I'm talking about the top of the top, the creme de la creme scholars out there that can break down the mysteries of the book of Revelation, and even certain parts of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, because they got the four empires correct, but what they failed in is the very end prophecy of that, which is that little horn in Daniel 7, which is different from the little horn in Daniel 8. And then in the book of Daniel, the second chapter, the 10 toes, part of iron and part of clay. They fail at that because the Lord is not dealing with them, because they are not the prophets of the Lord. Surely the Lord power will do nothing, but he revealeth the secrets unto his servants, the prophets. So the Lord is making himself known amongst us and showing that amongst the world. And this is why the world is upset. And this is why, you have, a call out there to highlight and come against the Hebrew Israelites. Call them black, call them this, call them that, to demonize us. Why? Because they can't, like Yahushua said, I will give you a mouth of wisdom that none of your adversaries shall be able to gainsay nor resist. So since they can't do that, what is their next tactic? To be deceptive, to bring about lies and false, witness, and to demonize. But that's all they can do. It says, Ezekiel 35:12, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord, and that I have heard all thy blasphemies which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they are laid desolate, they are given us to consume. See? And that's why the land of Israel today is in the hands of the heathens. And chat, like I said, chat indirectly said that those people there are not the people, by saying that we're not in a messianic age. And when the messianic age comes, when Yahushua comes on the scene, that's when the world is going to recognize the people of the Lord, and they're going to recognize, and start to learn the ways of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai, his law, statutes, and commandments. But before the Messiah gets here, which they admitted we're not in the messianic age, and we're not. He said that Jerusalem shall be trodden down to the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And that time has not been fulfilled. That's why you still have heathens in that land. Thus with your mouth you have boasted against me, and have multiplied your words against me. I have heard them. It says, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, when the whole earth rejoiceth, I will make thee desolate. So when the whole earth rejoiceth, the Lord said he's going to make you Edomites, desolate, because you're going to suffer hardcore slavery for 1,000 years. But you're also going to be exterminated, extinguished from the planet Earth as a people. You will no longer be recognized as a nation of people on the planet Earth ever. There will never be any mention of the Edomite except for in the Bible. There will never be a person on the planet Earth that could say that their line goes back to the Edomites after that 1,000 years of hardcore captivity, because every single last one of them is going to be rounded up and melted. All right, according to Obadiah 1:18. So I'm going to come right back to this, but let's go real quick to the book of Isaiah 14, because it says, when the whole, it says, thus saith the Lord power, when the whole earth rejoiceth, I will make thee desolate. And that is the only solution to the problem of the Edomite. The only solution to fix the Edomite is to abolish the Edomite. That's the only solution. And that's why the Lord is coming to do that. Yahweh Bashem Shai is coming to take these devils out, because they were set on a destructive course to destroy the earth. And Yahweh Shai said, if those days don't be cut short, there shall no flesh left to be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be cut short. So we're at that point. So once you finally go down, that's when the whole earth is going to rejoice. And eventually, you're going to be annihilated off the planet Earth. Off the planet. So Isaiah 14:4 says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how have the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. And that's when these devils go down. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked. A staff represents like a walking, like something that props you up. It says, and the scepter of the rulers, meaning their power, their rulership, and the rulership of Esau, they have, they have the rulership of Esau, they have helped, or should I say, they have put into power on a small level as a vassal, the rulers of the earth. So when your power goes down, so does the power of all these different rulers and nations around the planet Earth that are backing your agenda. It says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth. Why? Because it's the time of your visitation, the time when you go down, you Edomites. It says the whole earth is at rest. When you go down, when you're put back into subjugation. That's why it says that when the beast had that deadly wound, they couldn't deceive the world anymore. The world got a little break for a period of 1,000 years plus when these devils went down. This is why you didn't have, you still had wickedness going on the earth, but not on the level that you have today with these devils. Because let's go real quick to First Maccabees, the first chapter, and verse 7. So Alexander, which is Alexander, what they call the Great, we call him the Greek, or the freak, or the creep. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bear rule, every one in his place. That's dealing with his generals. He had many generals, but he parted his kingdom to 5 of the generals, but there were 4 main generals that really, took over his empire, because they fought against Antigonus and took him out and took over those lands that he had. So it was pretty much, Cassander, Laomachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Those are the 4 major empires. Those are the servants that bear rule, and their sons after them, bear rule. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, right? Because they had rulership over his kingdom. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. So when you devils are ruling, you Edomites, that's when evils are multiplied. But when you were in that prison sentence for 1,000 years, you were not able to deceive the world. You were not able to increase evil or wickedness more than it already was. But once you got out of that prison sentence during the time of the Renaissance period, that's when wickedness started to increase even more. So much so that you would have, because when you go back to, let's go to Second Maccabees 6. Even when you go back to the time of the Greeks, there were things that were done that were not allowed, but you had even Israelites that were doing that because the Israelites became more wicked than the wicked. Second Maccabees 6. I'll start at 1. The point is in 4. Not long after the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews, the Israelites, to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of the Most High. Right. And this was always going on, but this was like one of the main times this really happened under the rule of Antiochus Epiphanes. And to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, the actual heathens, who dallied with the harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. Right, this is temple prostitution. And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. So these devils, man, they have no they have no there's nothing sacred in their sight. They are an evil, wicked people. There's nothing holy to them. They don't even honor each other. They are cutthroats. They are lowlifes. They are just soulless individuals. That's why when you look at them, you can see that empty, evil, shark look in their eyes. They don't have any emotion. They're dead while they're walking. You could look at them. You could look in their eyes. You could see how evil. You could look at the Pope. You could look at, the Rothschilds, the Rockefeller. You could look at all of them, and you could see that dead, evil look in their eyes. That demonic, spirit. A lot of those tiny tops, mini caps, you could see that in their face too. Even when they're talking, you could see that they're lying. These are some evil, wicked people. So let's get rid of this. Let's go back to Isaiah 14:7. Now it says, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. When you are brought down, when you are persecuted and none hindereth. When you go down, the whole earth is going to rejoice because you've been the main problem, the main oppressor of the world. But the nations allow it because, first of all, it's prophecy. And second of all, you're giving them goodies. You're making them rich. Like the scriptures say, a gift destroyeth the heart. So because you give them these gifts, they allow this BS. But that's why it says the nations have drunken of a wine, therefore the nations are mad. But now the nations are starting to fight back and rebel. Why? Because it's prophecy. Let the weak say, I am strong. And the Lord is stirring up these nations for war. Because World War III is going to happen. You're not going to be able to, to stop it. World War III is going to happen. World War III is prophesied and World War III will happen. There's no stopping it. There's nothing that you could do. There's no peace treaty you could sign. There's no amount of money that you could pay to these nations to stop it. Matter of fact, when we go to Isaiah 13 and 17, it says, behold, I will stir up the Medes. Who are the Medes? So they are the Russians. The ancient Medes were the brown-skinned people of Japhet, but the land that the Medes had, and even above that, the Russians possessed that. Or the Russians had control of what you know as Georgia, Russia, and that borders down into the land of the Medes, and even beyond that, up above that, where Russia is, that's where the Medes are today, the modern day Medes, which are not the actual Japhetic Medes, just like the Greeks today that call themselves Greeks, they're not descendants of, you know, the actual Japhetic people. They are descendants of Alexander the Creep. You know, now you do have some that go back to actual Japhet, which are the brown skinned ones. You know, but the actual, you know, Edomites that come from Alexander, Philip, you know, Ptolemy, you know, Seleucus, and all of them, they were all Edomites that took on the name of Greeks or the title of Greeks. Just like, you know, today you have the Russians today would be the modern day Medes, so you could understand. It says, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it." So they're not going to be worried about money. There's not enough money in the world that you can pay the Russians off, the Chinese, or any nation on the planet Earth to stop World War III from coming, because it's prophesied. Let's go to Proverbs 16:1. It says, "The preparation of the heart in man and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord." So the preparation of the heart in man and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. There's one, I believe that's Proverbs 21, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh Bashem Shai. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So the king's heart, the minds of these rulers are in the hand of Yahweh Bashem Shai. And he's going to make them turn. He's going to make them, you know, do his bidding, because there's a plan, a purpose, there's prophecy to be fulfilled. And the Lord is not going to break his prophecy, not even for his great name's sake. He's not going to break his law, not even for his great name's sake. So this is Job 33:14. "For the Most High speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth it not. In a dream, in the vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, and slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men, and sealeth their instruction, that he may withdraw man from his purpose, and hide pride from man." So that's pretty much the bottom line. So the Lord controls everyone's thoughts. He is the power of spirits. He is the father of spirits. He created the spirits. He controls the spirits. And he is going to be the one that's going to turn the hearts and the minds of these kings of the earth, these rulers of the earth, to fight against Babylon and to shoot off their missiles against Babylon. All right. So there's no amount of money you could pay to stop this. You know, and that land over there being polluted, the more wicked they become, the more angry the Lord becomes. And when he unleashes his fury, there's no holding back. That's why that land is going to be totally annihilated also. But the difference is America is going to be annihilated as a sign of what it is to be wicked, and a place of wickedness, what happens to the wicked. Just like today, they still having a hard time finding the areas where Sodom and Gomorrah and the other cities were, because of the great destruction the Lord brought upon them, his indignation, to show you how he feels about that. And even in the book of Peter, the apostle Peter spoke about that those things were set as an example for those that afterwards should live ungodly. But you still have these devils that are pushing that lifestyle on the earth, and they're pushing that lifestyle in the Holy Land. So you know the Most High Yahweh is angry. You know that his son Yahweh Shai is angry. And Yahweh Shai can't wait to annihilate this, that place and America. But he has to wait for the word of the Father, which proves they're not equal, which proves they're not the same spirit. You know, you have Vocab come on my channel on the live the other day, talking about, he came on there. I just lost my train of thought. There was a point that I was trying to make, but I forgot. He came on there, saying what he said, but I don't remember the point. It was a point I was going to make, but nevertheless, that he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man. So the prophecies of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai are going to happen no matter what. There's no stopping it. Now, when you go to the book of Daniel, the 10th chapter, Yahweh Shai was working on the mind of a particular Persian king. And that Persian king's mind was deep. So he was persuading him to do a particular thing. And he even had to have Michael come and help him to persuade him. Because back then, kings' hearts and their minds were a lot deeper. Today, you got these wishy-washy leaders, that are not deep. They're not deep thinkers. They're not, they're just weak because of the age. And I'm not talking about their age. I'm talking about age, the age we're in the last days. Everything is defiled, and also the influence that they have, how they easily influenced by money. But the kings back then had a strong mind. So there's going to be a World War III. The Lord is going to make it happen. And that World War III is going to serve as the beginning of the cleaning up of this planet. And the only thing that's holding it back from fully exploding on the scene is the MOTB, which is the micro CHIP. And that's why this is such an important, such an important prophecy, and such an important, so it's so important for the watchman, the true watchman, to actually speak on it and to warn the people not to take it. Because once you take it, you Israelites take it, and you're here on the shores of America, you're doomed. You're going to be destroyed. You're going to be, erased off of the planet. Because, it's a punishment. Here on the shores of America, you're going to be erased off the shores of America by that nuclear fire, which is the lake of fire. Now, as far as the other Israelites around the world that take it, we don't know how the Lord's going, how he's going to do it, but somehow, some way, the Lord's going to judge them. But the fire, the nuclear fire, is reserved for America and the land of Israel. And you have a lot of Israelites in that land, and some of them don't look like Israelites. So the Lord, he's going to do a mighty work. So World War III is coming, and they're not going to be able to stop it. So let's go from there. Let's go back to, matter of fact, let's go back to Ezekiel. Let me see. You know what? Let me go from there to Ezekiel 36, because we were dealing with how in Ezekiel 35, these devils got the land of Israel into their hand with the joy of all their hearts, because they pretty much got a hold of, and they're slowly but surely moving in on the whole land. But back then, they did have a portion of it, and the two families was a representation of the nation of Israel. But back then, you only had a handful of the northern kingdom that was there, so you didn't have the fullness. But the land, you did have the possession of the land back then, and you had the possession of the land today. So if you were really the people of the Most High, wars would stop around the world, and all nations will be coming to you to learn the ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And like I said, in Chat GPT, indirectly it said you're not the people, because they said we're not in the Messianic age, and you are in the land of Israel. And the Lord said, Yahweh Shai said out of his own mouth, he said that the land of Israel Jerusalem shall be trodden down to the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So indirectly, Chat told on you, and you try to control it, but the truth is out. Cat's out the bag, dude. Inside joke. So Ezekiel 36:1, also thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Thus saith the Lord power, because the enemy have said against you, aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession, which we read in Ezekiel the 7th chapter. And we read in Ezekiel the 35th chapter, they got the possession into their hands with the joy of all of their heart. They rejoice at this moment. Just like the nations were always salivating for the Lord to destroy us. That's why it says in Lamentation. Let's go there real quick and we'll come right back to this. Lamentation 2 and 15. It says, all that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem. You know, like, he's like, tisk, tisk. You know, like, man, look at this. These are the people of the Most High. Look at them. Look at how degenerate they are. Look at what they've been reduced to. And that's how the nations look at us, saying, "Is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? What's this? These are none but niggers, spics, spooks, wetbacks, tontos. All thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee." So all these nations are going to pay. See, we get on Esau the most because Esau is the top ruler right now, and the history of the wickedness that he did to us is the freshest. But don't forget that all of these nations are going to get equal ass whippings, equal rods upon their heads. The iron rod crashing upon their heads. But the thing is that the most recent and the most fresh memory in our mind is the wickedness that Esau did, the conquistadors, the British, the so-called Americans, all of these devils, the French, all of them. They all going to get an equal opportunity ass kicking. But all the nations are also going to get theirs just due too. They're not going to get away. Because in Jeremiah the 30th chapter, it says, all thine enemies, even all of them, shall go into captivity. So ain't none of them escaping. So how the fuck are the nations going to be saved? And Priest of Bach, man, please stop being PC, bro. Scriptures speak about rebuke, reprove, that others may be sound in the faith. I don't understand what is PC. That was never a thing in back at One West. That PC shit. No, don't say no. I mean, you did have some instances, but for the most part, there was a lot of rebuke going on, and that's a part of our culture. Like Elder Yashwamba used to say years ago, rebuke and reproof is a part of our culture. So where the hell is the spirit coming from? This PC, soft Israelite spirit. Where's it coming from? I don't understand it. And them two devils, those are two demons, Hakah and Hassad. Or should I say it the right way? Hassad and Hakah, those are two demons. And they're teaching that the nations can be saved. They're not teaching that the nations are not going to. They're teaching the nations can be saved. And they're very deceptive. Two demons. Might be Philetus and Hymenaeus. One of them might be Alexander the Coppersmith. Who knows? It says, all thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash their teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. Certainly this is the day that we look for. We have found, we have seen it. Right. They have found, they have seen it. So they look for this day. And when we fell as a nation, they were rejoicing. And this is all these nations want. You better believe that the higher ups know who the hell we are. Let's go to Lamentations 1 and 21. This is one of my favorite of all time. They have heard that I sigh. Right, we're catching hell. They hear it and they're glad. There is none to comfort me. Right, who shall bemoan thee, O Jerusalem? That's why nobody give a shit about us. Ain't nobody having a bleeding heart for us. But when anything else happens to any of these nations, everyone's up, concerned. But when it happens to Jake, oh, that's just a nigga. That's just a spick, All mine enemies have heard of my trouble. They are glad that thou hast done it. Right? They're glad that you brought us down. They're glad that you have us in such a destitute state. It says, thou will bring the day that thou hast called, and they shall be like unto me. So this is going to be the original trading places. Because we are going to trade places. If you've never seen that movie, Trading Places, with Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, that was produced by Aaron Russo, I suggest you go and see that movie, rent it, buy it, whatever. And that movie shows you a glimpse into the future of these bankers and how there's going to be, Jake is going to come up, we're going to come up, and Esau is going to come down. Esau right now Esau is in, they living it up. More, Randy and Morte, they living it up. Randolph and Mortimer, they living it up. But then eventually they're gonna be in the poorhouse. And I'm not just talking about the poor. I'm talking about they're gonna be in pits. They're gonna be lowered and low. They're gonna go back to the base devil that they're supposed to be. Because they're in a position that they're not supposed to be in, but they are supposed to be in it because the Lord set them up, but they are the basis of men. Let's go real quick before we go back. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 10 and 7. It says, I have seen servants upon horses. Who are the servants? Esau. And what in a depiction of that is the Teddy Roosevelt. I think that was Teddy Roosevelt. That was a Rough Riders. Teddy Roosevelt statue at the museum, a Natural History Museum. I believe that was it. Let me see. Let's see. Yep, they got the images still. You can still find the images till they scrub them. I want to get a good one. Here we go. I want to get a frontal. This image right here depicts that scripture. This image should be right next to that scripture. I have seen servants upon horses. Look at this devil, how proud he is. I have seen servants upon horses, right? It says, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. And these are the princes. And they're walking as servants upon the earth. This is Judah, and this is Gad. And they're walking on the earth. While this devil is up on the nag. He don't belong up there. But the reason why he's up there is because the Lord put him up there. And that was a punishment to us. That he would allow the basis of all men on the planet Earth to be over us. And over the whole world. All right. Matter of fact, let me save this picture. That way, if ever I need it again. All right, so let's go back. So I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. And that just shows you how angry the Lord was against us to allow such a devil to rule over us. So going back to, oh snap, I got to go back to Ezekiel. Ezekiel 36 and 3 now. Matter of fact, I read 2 again. Thus saith the Lord power, because the enemy have said against you, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Therefore prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord power, because they have made you desolate and swallowed you up on every side, that you might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen, and you are taken up in the lips of talkers and are an infamy of the people. Yeah, everybody's talking about niggas and spicks and, out of all these nations that are immigrants here in America, the main focus is on the so-called Latin tribes. That's not by coincidence. It's set up that way because these individuals, the small hats, they know who the so-called Latin tribes are. They know that they're the Northern Kingdom. And this is why they try to throw shade on the Apocrypha, because the Apocrypha reveals where the 12 tribes went to and how long it took to get here. And in the scriptures, it tells us how long King Solomon and his navy and Hiram's navy, the Zidonians, how long it took them to get over to this side of the world. A year and a half one way, a year and a half the other way. So these devils know. It says, therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord, power. Thus saith the Lord power, to the mountains and to the hills, to the rivers and to the valleys, to the desolate waste, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and derision to the residue of the heathen that are round about. Right. So because the land is going to be built back up. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, surely, but this is after the destruction. Surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen. against all Idumea, which is a Greek way of saying Edom, which goes back to the Hebrew Adawam, which means red, which have appointed my land into their possession with what? The joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. So I want to look up a couple of these words. Let's look up the word appointed. Look up the word appointed. The word there is Nathan, which is to give. So they gave the land to themselves. Come on, man. To give, put, you know, to give, bestow, grant, permit. So they gave the land to themselves. Let me see. Have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds. Let's see what despiteful is. The word there is sha'at. Sha'at. Despite, contempt. Yeah. See? Pride, arrogance, with the pride of all their heart. Despite, to cast it out for a prey. Let's see, cast it out. Magarash, common land, open land, suburb. Yeah, so they pretty much just took over our land, you know, and cast it out for a prey. I want to look at some of these other versions, see what it says there. NLT, this is what the sovereign Lord says. My jealous anger burns against those nations, especially Edom, because they have shown utter contempt for me by gleefully taking my land for themselves as plunder, see, as a prey. NIV, this is what the sovereign Lord says. In my burning zeal, I have spoken against the rest of the nations and against all Edom, right? Because you have the Gentiles, the nations that have that land, you know, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. For with glee and with malice in their hearts, they made my land their own possession, so that they might plunder its pasture land. Yeah. And they know that that is the most fertile land on the planet, even though right now it's cursed, but it's the most fertile land on the planet. So it says, prophesy therefore, verse 6, prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains, and to the hills, and to the rivers, and to the valleys, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because you have borne the shame of the heathen. So you have borne the shame. We borne the shame of the heathen, but the Lord is going to make it good. Just bear with me 1 second, my Bakasha. Actually, give me like a minute. You need to refill your cups and water or something. right. So so the Lord is gonna, you know, He's gonna avenge us, revenge us, and because we born the shame of the heathen, and the Lord is mad. He's angry. He wants to take that place out, but he's uh he's bound by his word. Let's go to Romans 9:22. It says, what if the Most High, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? And who is that? Those are the Edomites. When you go back above to the 13th verse, a little before that, it speaks about Jacob and Esau. And Esau is the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction. Jacob is Jacob is the vessel, not the wrath, the vessel of honor. Esau is the vessel of dishonor. And that vessel of dishonor is going to be destroyed. First is going to begin with the destruction of his kingdom. Then they will go into captivity as a nation for 1,000 years of hardcore slavery. And then after that, they're going to be burnt off of the planet. Every last one of them. There's not going to be any remainder. All right. It says, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which are the Israelites, which he had afore prepared unto glory. Even us whom we have called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles or the Israelite foreigners. And this goes into a whole nother topic. This is some good stuff here, because in this chapter, it tells you that the Lord is only dealing with the Israelites. And in this chapter also tells you that the Gentiles who the Lord is dealing with are the Israelites. All right, so let me bring this back. Let's go back to Ezekiel 36:7. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, I have lifted up mine hand. Surely the heathen that are about you, they shall bear their shame. Yeah, and this is why right now the Lord is, before the Lord brings judgment on any nation, he first, reveals, the judgment that's coming prior to it coming. That's why the first step to judgment is what? Revelation. When you go to 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, the 8th verse, then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, which are the prophets, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Because after that comes the actual judgment. So we're in the final stages of the sentencing stage. We're at the end of the sentencing stage. There's not really too much more we could say of the wickedness that you've done, even though we could say more and more, because more and more comes out every day. And we're just, pretty much right now sentencing you to your future judgment. And when the Lord is ready for you, when you push your agenda of the MOTB, the micro CHIP worldwide, that's when the Lord is going to rain down his judgment upon you. And that's what we're waiting for. And that's just the beginning of your sentence. The beginning of your sentence is fire, and the ending of your sentence is fire. And throughout the midst of your sentence is going to be fire. It says, but ye, O mountains of Israel, you shall shoot forth your branches and yield your fruit to my people of Israel, for they are at hand to come. Right. And that's why the prophets are here right now. The mountains of Israel represent the government of Israel, and that's the prophets underneath Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. You have King David on down. There's set thrones of David. You shall shoot forth your branches and yield your fruit to my people Israel. And that's why right now the nourishing aspects of the spirit are being brought out to the Israelites, the ones that are part of the elect, so that they can eat and be nourished spiritually, for the times to come, because the Lord is gathering his elect right now and he's nourishing them. It says, yield your fruit to my people Israel, for they are at hand to come. Right. And we are in this time right now where the Israelites that have been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth are being gathered right now. Because you have this foolishness out there that the Lord is going to save all nations, and that was never a part of the contract. That was never a part of a deal that the Most High made. The Lord never made a deal with those nations. The only thing that those nations did was they were actual servants. Now, if they did good, if they were a good servant, you ain't just gonna beat a good servant, even though he's a heathen. You ain't just gonna beat his head and he's doing everything he's supposed to do, you know. But when they go off, the scriptures teach you and tell us how to deal with an evil servant. Matter of fact, let me see if it comes up that way. I know there's a couple in the. Here we go. Sirach 33:26. Barak a yoke and a collar do bow the neck. So are tortures and torments for an evil servant. Right. And that's why you have an evil servant, you bust his ass. You know? But if the servant is doing you right, doing you good, like Eleazar, Abraham's servant, you're not just gonna bust him in the head, you know. But if he gets out of order, if he gets out of line, if he gets a little too uppity, then you gotta check him. You know, that's why it speaks about the bruises and all that. Let's see, Sirach 42:5. Uh, and of merchants in different selling, yeah, because merchants are demons, you know, and that's why they'll rip your ass off. Of much correction of children, and to make the side of an evil servant to bleed, right? Because if an evil servant is evil and you don't check that evil servant, guess what? That evilness is going to spread to the other servants, you know, that might be decent servants, and that aggressive demonic evil spirit in that servant is going to jump on the other ones. So you got to keep them in check. And that was pretty, although this is going into Israelites that are out here teaching the truth and you know, and are not, you know, are not fervent. They're not, you know, doing the Lord's bidding, and the Lord's going to deal with you too. Matthew 24:48. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, you know, and then he gonna get a portion with the unbelievers, with the, you know, with that destruction. So that's, you know, so you see what you're supposed to do to these servants, you know. um there was something else, but I can't think of it right now. So let's go back to Ezekiel 36 and 9. It says, for behold, I am for you, and I will turn unto you, and you shall be filled, you shall be tilled and sown, right? Because right now the land of Israel, which is the most fertile land on the planet, is polluted right now. It's cursed, and that's why it can't grow things like it should. This is why you have to import things into that land, which you never had to before, because there's a land flowing with milk and honey. But the land is cursed right now, so it's not yielding what it used to yield. You know, it still yields certain things, but it's not yielding like it used to. You know, and this is a curse really that goes all the way back to Cain. You know, even though Cain and his descendants were destroyed during the time of the flood, they came back through the seed of the Edomites. And that continued on to this day, that the earth is cursed. And the only time the earth is going to get healed and blessed again and be under a blessed vibration is when the kingdom of heaven is established and Yahweh Bashem Al Shai is established back on the earth, and the people of the Most High, the true Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, and wherever they may be scattered on the planet, are established back as the holy people of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. And the men of Israel are going to be the priests of the earth. And the men of Israel, you know, the top echelon government are going to establish true order, you know, justice and order on the planet Earth. You know, and this is where we're heading. And I will multiply men upon you, all the houses of Israel, even all of it. And I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel, even all of it, because the seed or the promise that the Lord made with Abraham was to all of his seed. So these demons out there, like Bishop Nathaniel and the IUIC that's teaching that Israelites are going to burn in hell, and the GOCC that's teaching that if you don't repent, you're going to burn in hell. You even for his holy name's sake, but then you botch up the word. Romans 4:16. It says, therefore it is of faith that it might be by grace, meaning salvation, to the end the promise which was made to who? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, might be sure to what? To all the seed. What all seed? All the seed of Israel, which is the chosen seed, the chosen people of the Most High. Not to that only which is of the law, right? Because you had those that were keeping the law, but to that also which is of the faith of Abraham, right? Which you had the Israelite foreigners that were brought into this thing by faith, who is the father of us all, so that it might be sure to what? To all the seed. Let's go from there to Psalms 22 and verse 30, I believe it is. Yep, a seed shall serve him. It shall be accounted to the Lord for a generation. They shall come and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he have done this. So when you scroll back up to that seed, verse 23, ye that fear Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, praise him. All ye the seed of Jacob, glorify him and fear him. All ye the seed of Israel. So that seed that's going to serve the Lord are the Israelites. And that's why in the book of Romans, the 9th chapter, which these demons are trying to use, these apologists are trying to use, they're hurting themselves with this. They're trying to say that this here in Romans 9 verse 7 and verse 8, this is talking about Israel. This is not talking about Israel. Verse 6 is talking about Israel. So what the Apostle Paul was saying, that just like not all the Israelites are the Israelites because you only have an election among Israel, so all of the seed of Abraham is not going to be saved, because Abraham had 8 sons, but only one of them was the elect or the chosen. So the same way that not all of Israel is going to be saved, only the elect in this time, you also had an election among the seeds of Abraham, which was one, and that was Isaac. And it narrows it down as you continue to read. But they try to use this, and because it says, verse 8, that is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of the Most High. They're trying to equate that with just because you are of the flesh of Israel. No, because when you read the verse above it, it's talking about Abraham and his seeds, because he had eight children, 8 sons, and all of those 8 sons were not heirs. All of those 8 sons were not of the promise. This is why he gave Ishmael and the other 6 sons by Keturah, he gave them blessings. He gave them, gifts, and he sent them away from Isaac. Why? Because they would not inherit anything that was given to Isaac, because the promise was to Abraham and his seed, singular, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's why Abraham wanted to give his blessing and his inheritance to his firstborn, which was Ishmael. And the Lord said, nah, I heard you concerning Ishmael. That's why his name is Ishmael, Yashemai Allah. I have blessed him. I'm going to make him great. But my promise I'm going to make with you and with the son that you're going to have with Sarah. That was going to be the son of the blessing, or the son of the promise. So you got to get it right. And then as you read this whole chapter is dynamic. And the Lord's will, I wanted to get into this chapter breakdown again, if the Spirit allows. That's on the agenda, Lord's will. All right, so let's go back to Ezekiel 36 and 10. And I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel. See, because all of Israel shall be saved. And I have a list of scriptures where that madness that these IUIC members are teaching, beginning with their one leader, Bishop Nathaniel, that if you're Israelite and you don't repent, you're going to go to hell, you're going to burn in hell. That cuts all of that shit, because the Lord's going to forgive all of the sins of Israel in the kingdom of heaven. They're going to, the ones that don't repent on this side are going to be burnt up here in America, but when the kingdom comes, they'll come back through the ones that make it. You never thought you'd see the day when you see all this madness being taught, you know, from the former One West camps. It's a sad thing to see. So it says, even all of it. So all of the house of Israel, even all of it, and the cities shall be inhabited, and the wastes shall be builded. And I will multiply upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bring fruit. And I will settle you after your old estate. Right. Which this goes hand in hand with what? Isaiah 61, the desolate places, Amos 9 and 11, you know, dealing with, you know, the rebuilding of the tabernacle of David, which is fallen. It also goes with Haggai, the glory of the latter house shall be greater than the former house. You know, so the Lord is building up his spiritual temple. The third temple is a spiritual temple. This is why you see in the book of Revelation 21, the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven, you know, as a bride adorned, you know, and that city that the Apostle John saw in his vision is a representation of the elect of the nation of Israel coming down. It's not an actual city that's going to come down from the heavens. It's the actual people, because the people make the city. No, not the other way around. Let's go to 2 Maccabees 5 and 19, I believe it is. Nevertheless, the Most High did not choose the people for the place's sake, but the place for the people's sake. So when you see that when you see that, you know, kingdom, right, coming down in Revelation 21, it was an actual city that the Apostle John saw, but it was a representation of the Israelites, the elect coming down on the earth, because that's what's going to be that's the kingdom of heaven. Then Yahushua said the kingdom of heaven is within you, and he was talking to Israelites, because the kingdom of heaven begins with the people and the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that's going to be, you know, used to reestablish order on the planet Earth, because the order is out of the planet is out of order because of the inhabitants, you know, the landlords that are running it today. It's totally out of order. It's totally gone. There's no way to clean it up. It's got to be totally dismantled, and the people that are ruling it have to be totally removed out of the way, so that there can be a reestablishment. There could be, you know, a recovery. Otherwise, the way that the world is going, it will go into oblivion. It will be totally destroyed under the current landlords, because they are demons. They don't know how to rule. Remember, these are the bases of men. This is why you have, you know, islands of plastic floating in the waters. This is why you have polluted waters, because the devil that's ruling it, these Edomites that's ruling it, the current landlords, you know, are not fit to rule. They're the basis of men. Do you understand what that means? They're men of no name. They're the lowest of the low. They don't know how to govern things. This is why what great inventions have the mini tops or the mini caps, tiny tops, the small hats. What did they ever really come up with? I'll tell you what they came up with, though. They stole everything. You know, and then when Jake innovates something and makes something popular, what happens? They present them an absorbent amount of money, and then they'll take over that product. And guess what? If the intentions of that product was, you know, clean ingredients at the beginning, guess what? By the time they get it, they destroying it. So Jake makes things popular. Esau comes in and buys it from them. The mini caps. They come in and buy it. They come in and steal stuff. They take stuff. They take ideas. This is why you see vocab. Vocab is a small hat. This is why you see vocab, using bug out and terms that we use, talking points that we use. Or what scripture is that? Scripture and verse. Where did he get that from? Israel. All they are is just culture vultures. They are not innovators. And they do not know how to rule. Isaiah 24:4, the earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish, which is who? That's Esau. It said the earth also is defiled under what? The inhabitants thereof. It's not just talking about the people that live here. It's talking about the people that are ruling it. Because the people that are ruling it don't know what the fuck they're doing. They built all of these, they built an empire that is destroying the world. They built an infrastructure that's destroying the world. Everything that they do destroys either the water, the air, the minds of the people. I mean, the ground, everything is destroyed. So this world cannot continue to be, this devil cannot continue to be allowed to rule. Otherwise, he will bring the world and the earth to the brink of extinction. It says the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. So they cannot rule. They don't know how to rule. It says, let favor be shown to the wicked, yet will they not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness, they will deal unjustly. All right. So back in Isaiah 36:11, right? Let me see. I was going to look up the word old estate. And if you're tired, then take a break. Quadama, antiquity. See, former state or estate or situation. You can't go back to a former state that you were never a part of. The nations were never a part of this. So when the Lord said he's going to build us up according to the former state, he's going to rebuild us back as the Israelites. The nations never had a part of that. They never had a part of that. Because I even asked, Google, show me a scripture in the Old Testament that all people are God's people. And they gave me two scriptures. Let's see if I can remember. What was that other one? Was it? Let me see something. Damn, I wish I could remember the other one. One of them was Psalms 82. Right here, Psalms 82:8. Arise, O Most High, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. Meaning all people on the planet Earth are the Most High's possession. That's all that means. That doesn't mean that all people are his people. Let's see. Right here, CSB. Rise up, the Most High, judge, O Most High, judge the earth. For all the nations belong to you, meaning they're your possession. You own them. You created them. But there was another scripture that they brought out. I'm trying to remember what that other one was. And they just pretty much flipped it. Let me see if I could word that real quick. Let me go to all. I'm sorry, not AI mode. All. Damn it. All. Let's see. Let me see. Scripture. Let me see something. How did I word that? I forgot how I worded it. Something along the lines of give me the scripture in the Old Testament where all people are God's people, something like that. I forget exactly how I worded it. Damn, I wish I could remember that one. Oh, in scripture in the Old Testament. I know that gave me right here, Jeremiah. That's it. Barakateh Halabah Shemal Shai. Jeremiah 31:1. Now look how deceptive these devils are. While the Old Testament focuses on Israel as God's chosen people, verses like Jeremiah 31:1 and Psalms 82:6 and 7 speak to a broader, universal aspect of God's relationship with all humanity. Now, check this out, right? Jeremiah 31:1 states, God will be the God of all the families of Israel. And Psalms 82:50 says, I have said you are gods, and all of you are the children of the Most High. But they try to say that this is talking about the way it worded it was that Jeremiah 31:1 was supposed to be the Most High is the God of Israel and of all the families of the earth. Now let's go to that. Jeremiah 31:1. It says, at that same time, saith the Lord Yahweh Shemal Shai, will I be the power of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. There's nowhere in there mentions all the nations. But see how deceptive these devils are? And the way it was worded before was that they say that this was talking about all the nations on the planet, including no, that's not what this says. And the other one that we read in Psalms 82, that's talking about, and then the part where it says you are gods, that's talking about the Israelites. Because Yahweh Shai even quoted this in St. John the 10th chapter when he was speaking to the Pharisees. He wasn't speaking to the heathens. I have said you are gods. Is it not written in your law? Whose law? Remember, Galileo said he didn't want nothing to do with the. If it's something concerning your law, I don't want nothing to do with that. The heathen don't want nothing to do with the laws of the Most High. Pontius Pilate, we don't know if he's a Jake or not, but he didn't want nothing to do with that whole situation. He wanted to release Yahweh Shai. He didn't want to put Yahweh Shai, condemn him to death. So these nations are not concerned with our laws. These nations are not gods. When Yahweh Shai said, is it not written in your law? I said, ye are gods. He was talking to Israelites. This chapter right here is talking about Israelites. And down here, when it speaks about an inheritance of all nations, you have Israelites among all nations. But all nations do still belong to the Most High, period. So there's no scripture that says that all people are God's people. And we just read in Jeremiah 31 where they try to say that's dealing with all people. That's not talking about all the people of the planet. And I wish I could find it the way it was written before. I wish I could find, where I said that, because, it said Jeremiah 31:31 specifically says that the Most High, all the families are dealing with all nations. No, it's not talking about that. It says there specifically, when we read it, it said in Jeremiah 31:31 specifically, at that same time, saith the Lord Yahweh Shemal Shai, will I be the power of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. That's it. And then when you go to Amos, chapter 3:1, it says, hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. And when we go to Isaiah 40:15, this is what he feels about the other nations. Behold, the nations outside of the nation of Israel are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as a small dust of the balance. Right, so a drop in a bucket, you have a whole bucket full of water, depending on how, gallon, 2 gallon, whatever. If you lose one drop, that's nothing. If you weigh something, you weigh some flour or some, whatever on the balance on the scale, and then you take it off, and there's like a little micro dust or whatever on that scale, that's nothing. That doesn't weigh anything. That's how the Lord feels about these nations. He taketh up the isles as a very little thing, and Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beast thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. So you can't take all of the wood in Lebanon, which is one of the most precious, and cut all those trees down and take all of the clean animals on the planet Earth and burn them up as a sacrifice. And that's still not going to be enough for the Lord to choose the other nations. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beasts thereof sufficient for a burnt offering, because the nations are nothing to the Lord. It says, all nations before him are what? Are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. And even Ezra said that in 2nd Ezra 6 and 54. Second Ezra 6 and 54 says, and after these things, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. So all people came out of Adam. But if God, the Most High, loved all people, why did he have to have a chosen people outside of all the people he created? It says, all this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Who? The Israelites. As for the other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto what? Spittle, and as likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. So come on. The Lord ain't dealing with these other nations. It says, and now, O Lord, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us. So the nations are nothing before the Lord. All right? So get it right. Let's go back. Now, so the Lord says he's going to settle us after our former estate. We're going to be built back up. So that city that the Apostle John saw coming down is a representation of the Israelites, the elect nation of Israel, coming down to be reestablished on the earth. That was a little glimpse into the beginning of the kingdom of heaven. All right? Antiquity, former state or situation before origin. So the nations were never a part of that. So the nations cannot go back to that former state, to that older state, because they were never a part of that. The nations cannot be reconciled to something they were never a part of. But no matter how much you bring that out, no matter how many times you bring it out, these devils are going to circumlocute. They're going to keep going right back to the first beginning, argument that they brought. What about the Gentiles? Motherfucker, didn't we just explain to you for the last hour, who the Gentiles are and how the Lord ain't dealing with the heathen? He's only dealing with the Israelites. And then you'll spend another hour, and then he'll go right back to the goddamn same question. What about the Gentiles? That's why, like the Apostle Tara said, call the cops on these devils. We don't want nothing to do with you. We're tired of dealing with you. We dealt with you for decades, and it's the same tired-ass argument. And no matter how many times you explain it to them, they're not going to get it, especially these Edomites. They are the deaf adder that stoppeth their ears. So it says, and will do better unto you than from the beginning, and you shall know that I am the Lord. So Ezekiel 36:11, and I will multiply upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bring fruit, and I will settle you after your old estates, and will do better unto you than at your beginnings, and you shall know that I am the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai. Yea, I will cause men to walk upon you, even my people Israel, and they shall possess thee. So when the people of the Most High go back there, everything's going to be back to normal, back to how it's supposed to be when Yahweh Shai is there. So chat, like I said, once again, chat indirectly said that the people that are there are not the people that are Most High. Yahweh Shai said that Jerusalem shall be trodden down to the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And we're coming to that point now. And thou shalt be their inheritance, and thou shalt be their inheritance, and thou shalt no more henceforth bereave them of men. Thus saith the Lord power, because they say unto you, the land devoureth up men, and has bereaved thy nations. Therefore thou shalt devour men no more, neither bereave thy nations any more, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai. Neither will I cause men to hear in thee the shame of the heathen any more. Neither shalt thou bear the reproach of the people any more. Neither shalt thou cause thy nations to fall any more, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai. Right, because nation, this is nations, plural, that we're reading here from the 13th verse to the 15th verse, is talking about the Israelites. talking about the Israelites, because the Israelites were split into two nations. That's why when you read further down, it says there shall be, in the 37th chapter, there shall be no more two nations, but one. And each tribe is like a nation within itself. So, going back to Ezekiel 7 and 22, my face will I turn also from them, and they shall pollute my secret place, for the robber shall enter into it and defile it. And that's what they did, and they're still defiling it to this very day. Make a chain, for the land is full of bloody crimes, and the city is full of violence. See? And that's why you see all this violence going on there. When the people of the Most High are back in their land, there will be no more wars. There will be no more peace. Ever since these devils got there, it's been nothing but wars and peace breaking out all over the planet. Madness. And it's just ramping up. It's getting worse and worse because the people of the Most High are not in that land. Let me hit a couple more precepts and then we can get ready to close out. Let's go to Zechariah 12. And 1. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, save the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundations of the earth and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. And that's why the Lord's going to cause Jake to turn up. It says, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. Right. So so the people that are there, the land is a burdensome stone to them. But also the Israelites, the Lord's going to cause them to turn up. Let's go from there to Genesis 49 and 8. It says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies, right? Because they're going to tear your ass up, Esau. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Why? Because Judah is the head tribe. Yahweh shall be in the head of that. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion and as an old lion. Right? So you forgot who the prey was, Judah. And you are the main vehicle, in the Lord's plans. So you have to be roused back up. It says, who shall rouse them up? The Lord is going to rouse them up. This is why you see all this stuff happening. It happened to the Latin tribes with the ice thing going on, but now it's affecting the southern kingdom too. And the Lord is, stirring Judah up. For too long, Judah has been too laid back. Now the Lord is stirring things up, stirring that pot up, stirring the hornet's nest up. Let's go from there to Isaiah 19. And 16. It says, and that day shall Egypt be like unto women. Right, that's dealing with here in America, Esau. And it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai of hosts, which he shaketh over. Right, because the Lord is stirring things up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake everything up. It's time to stir it up. And the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt. Right, so Jake is going to turn up. Judah is going to turn up. And when Judah and Ephraim get together, forget about it. It's over. It's over for you devils. And that's why these devils are, trying to get the Latin tribes removed, whether you are here legally or illegally. They're trying to get all of them out. They're even trying to get Gad out of here. Why? Because these devils know who we are. They know the threat, spiritual threat that the Israelites pose. Because we are the Lord's people. And once Jake wakes up and starts calling upon the names of Yahweh Bashem El Shai, it's over for you devils. over. And that whole argument about Acor, him being a heathen, if he's actually a heathen and he joined to Israel, that ain't nothing different than Esther, when the people were afraid and scared and they joined themselves to Israel. So what? You converted. So what? What that mean? That makes you an Israelite now? No. Still a heathen. Still going into captivity. Everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself because of the counsel of Yahweh Bashem shall have hosts, which he have determined against it. Right. And this is right here. In that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan and swear to the Lord Yahweh Bashem shall have hosts. One shall be called the city of destruction. And what is the language of Canaan? It's Hebrew. When you go to I believe it's the NLT, it says, in that day, 5 of Egypt's cities will follow the Lord of heaven's armies. They will even begin to speak Hebrew, the language of Canaan. One of these cities will be Heliopolis, the city of the sun, which is really the city of destruction. And ain't talking about the city of the sun, because that doesn't appear in there. But the point is, the Hebrew language is the language of Canaan. All right. So going, I'm Salaka. Let's go from there to one more, Micah 5, and then we'll finish out in Ezekiel 7. Micah 5 and 7. It says, and the remnant, which is the residue of Jacob, shall be in the midst of many people, as a dew from the Lord. Yeah, so you see, Jake is here in the midst of all of these different other heathen nations. This is the mingled people in the book of Jeremiah, either 50 or 51. As the showers upon the grass, right? Because when it rains, the water is everywhere on the grass, right? That tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. Why? Because the Lord is going to rouse Judah up. He's going to rouse Ephraim up. He's going to rouse the tribes up out here, and they're going to get busy on these devils and on these nations. But the elect are not going to be a part of that. The elect are going to be shielded from all of that. It's going to get hairy out here. And the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles, actual heathens, in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep, who, if he go through, both treadeth down and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. Thine hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thine enemies shall be cut off. Yeah, so the Lord is going to cause Jake to turn up, all the tribes to turn up. You 2/3 out here, you're going to turn up on Esau. You YNs, you're going to turn up on these devils. The Lord's going to make it happen. So now let's finish up in Ezekiel 7 and 23. Make a chain, for the land is full of bloody crimes, and the city is full of violence. And that's why there's, no peace over there in the Middle East, so-called Middle East. There's no peace in the land of Israel. Why? Because the people of the Most High are not there. Wherefore I will bring the worst of the heathen. Who's that? That's Amalek, Scumalek. That's the mini caps, them tiny tops, them fitted tops, whatever you want to call them. And they shall possess their houses. Right. And that's why they're living in that land now, because they took that land with the joy of all their heart. I will also make the pomp of the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be defiled. Right. And that's what happened. They defiled the holy places. Destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. There ain't going to be no peace. There ain't going to be no peace. These devils talking about bringing war through peace. The Department of War. And there was another term that the Elder Kanak had mentioned yesterday in yesterday's lesson. They calling the military men something, war something. War soldiers or something like that. So these devils, that is their gift. Their gift is to bring war. Their gift is to wield that sword. So they get excited, they get elated, they get an adrenaline rush when you pick up a pea shooter and try to come against them, because that gives them the excuse for them to use their blessing, to take you out, to rip you out the frame. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priests and counsel from the ancients. Right. This goes back to in the ancient time when Israel was in the land, and they couldn't get any answers, or any blessings from the Lord to continue. But this applies today to these devils because they're in that land. So that curse falls upon them. Remember, Deuteronomy 30:7 said these curses are going to be put upon our enemies. So you took that land, guess what? You took on the curses too. You took the book, you took on the curses too. It says the king shall mourn and the prince shall be clothed with desolation. Right. And you're going to mourn over there too. And the hands of the people of the land shall be troubled. I will do unto them after their way, and according to their deserts will I judge them, and they shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So just like the Lord jacked up Jake back in the days in the land, he's going to jack up you jokers out there in that land. You heathens, you Amalekites, and you other ites out there. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.